Sportscast, May 18th, 2020. If you haven't yet, please subscribe in all our channels, YouTube, Periscope, and iTunes. And if you're in iTunes, please leave a rating and a review. It will help us out tremendously. And visit us on thesportscast.net, thesportscast.net. Today's sponsor is Insta Bible app. You could get the app on the iOS App Store today. Evander Holyfield, yes, has confirmed he is in advanced talks to come out of retirement for a trilogy fight with Mike Tyson. Holyfield versus Tyson 3. And joining us, ex-boxer Ty Turner, and all the way from the UK, Sean from the BTR Boxing Podcast Network. Welcome to the Sportscast.
What's up, man?
Thanks very much for having us again, Santiago. It's a pleasure.
Sean, on the eve of training of the Premier League, is coming back tomorrow. I mean, I'm not sure if you're following the Premier League, but I am, at least.
Yeah, I'm a fan of the Premier League. I'm a fan of football. My football team actually don't play in the Premier League. They're actually a few leagues down, the one that I support, but I am a big follower of the Premier League, and it sounds very promising that potentially we are going to get football back. I think everybody at the moment across the world are absolutely dying to get some sort of live sport going back on. It's been so difficult. We don't realise how much we miss the sport until it's gone.
It is, and Ty Turner is definitely desperate for sports, but he's not watching The Last Dance. How are you, Ty?
I'm good. Yeah, no Last Dance. I haven't seen an episode yet. Sure, it's good, though.
But will you?
Probably not.
Sean, are you watching The Last Dance from the UK? Or?
I've not watched it yet. I've seen many things about it. I'm very interested in getting into watching it because although I'm not a huge basketball fan, I'd obviously followed Michael Jordan. He was very prevalent in the 90s growing up as a young lad, and he's a name that has always been remembered for a lot of fans in the UK. Any basketball lovers or non-basketball lovers know who Michael Jordan is, and that just goes to show you the impact he had on his particular sport.
Before we head into Tyson, do you think Michael Jordan has a bigger name than Muhammad Ali?
Wow, that's a very bold statement. I think not. And that might just be me being boxing biased, but I think Muhammad Ali transcended not only his sport that he was in, but he transcended a lot of things. I think he transcended, different movements that were going on during that era of time that he was in, and he was very prevalent in various things. There's many stories about Muhammad Ali saving the freedom of hostages from Iraq in I think it was 90 or 1991. I've seen stories of him helping people off a ledge from committing suicide. I don't think there's many other sports people out there that have ever done the things that Muhammad Ali has done. So no, I would say no to that one.
Yeah, he's done a lot outside the ring. Ty, real quick, what do you think about that? Does Michael Jordan transcend over Muhammad Ali?
No, I really don't think there's been a more impactful athlete in the history of sports than Muhammad Ali. I think Muhammad Ali is the most famous, most popular, most polarizing, most everything in regards to an athlete, and just, I just, anywhere, any place, everyone knows who Muhammad Ali is, and just so much that he represented was transcendent of sports. I would say that Muhammad Ali was the most impactful, most famous, greatest athlete from an impact level in the history of sports. Now, the irony to that, at least in my opinion, I do not believe Muhammad Ali was the greatest fighter of all time. And we could talk about that if you want at some point. But
it's a whole different podcast.
I actually don't. I don't think I'd even have him in the top 5, to be honest with you. But as far as just being, whereas Jordan, I think, is unquestionably the greatest basketball player. Obviously, we fight about that in the chat, but I don't think there was ever a greater basketball player than Michael Jordan.
Amen.
And I think that's pretty much unanimously believed by most that Jordan was the greatest basketball player. Whereas it's odd that Ali was probably the most impactful athlete, most famous athlete. But probably, I doubt very few people that are actually boxing junkies would say he was the greatest fighter of all time.
It is a debate, a question. I personally think, back to the original question, I do think Michael Jordan has the branding edge, I guess, versus Muhammad Ali. But of course, we did outside the ring. I bet that is up to debate. But anyways, let's get into the main topic of the show. This episode. It's been 23 years since their infamous second showdown in Las Vegas, where Tyson bit off Holyfield's ear in the third round, and the pair could be set for a third showdown. Guys, any of you two want to take this? What are your thoughts about this? Is this what the sport needs?
Well, I think it's not essentially what the sport needs at the moment, but I do believe that there is a lot of people that are excited by the prospect of it. However, personally speaking, I wouldn't really want any of them to return to the ring. Tyson, having not fought since 2005, looked an absolute shell of his former self, losing to Kevin McBride, and then obviously you've got Holyfield, who last fought in 2011, and even he made multiple attempts at coming back, which were unsuccessful. I don't believe it's a good advert in that respect for the sport, but people are very excited because this 3 or 4 second clip of Mike Tyson looking in quite incredible shape for his age has gone around on the pads, and showing what looked like an old version of a Mike Tyson. But again, that's just pad work, and that's just him doing a 3 or 4 second combination. That doesn't necessarily mean he's going to be able to get back in the ring and potentially go on to fight guys that are on the current heavyweight scene, which is what some people are actually going out on a limb and saying. So personally, no, I don't think it is a good advert for boxing myself. Tyler, I'd be interested to know what your thoughts are on this.
From the aspect of these are two very famous heavyweights, two of the most famous heavyweights in the history of boxing. From the aspect, would it get viewers? Would people be excited because it's the two all-time greats fighting in 50 plus? Yes. Would it generate money? Yes. Would it be a good fight? Heck no. These guys are in their 50s. They would not be a great fight. They wouldn't look remotely like the guys that were once all-time great level heavyweights. It would be a pretty uninspiring fight. I don't know if you remember Roy Jones and Bernard Hopkins when they fought the second time, and I thought that they were both way too old, and I thought the fight was extremely uninspiring, but that would pale in comparison to 250-plus guys, one guy in Tyson who has not fought in 15 years. Yeah, it would just, because of their names, because of who they were as all-time great heavyweights, would it be viewed, and it would get some viewership. It would generate some media buzz. But as far as the fight, not as interested in seeing that fight as I am watching two cocks fight.
Mike Tyson is 53 years old. Evander Holyfield is 57. Sean, who do you think from the two are actually in better shape for boxing?
Very difficult to say, because it's easy enough to look at a video, like I said, of a 3-4 second combination on a pad and say that someone's in fighting shape. You're never going to know if you're actually in fighting shape until you actually get in the ring and fight. And there's always, speculation about whether people are in fighting fit shape. If Holyfield from videos, he looks like potentially he could be in great shape. But like Tyler's just rightly pointed out, would it put bums on seats? Yeah. Would it sell tickets? Probably. Would it do good numbers? Probably, because we're quite lacking in sport at the moment. So I'm sure a big time promoter would definitely benefit from putting this out there on some type of pay-per-view, which wouldn't surprise me. But in terms of what sort of shape they're in, it's really, really difficult to ascertain if they'd be in fighting shape come fight night. I think I just wanted to make a quick point about a similar situation happening here in the UK at the back end of 2019, where a former two-time world middleweight and super middleweight champion Nigel Benn made the decision to come out of retirement and was on the cusp of facing former champion Saki Obika, who I think was about 10 years his junior, who were both retired, but eventually ended up getting injured in training because his body couldn't hold up to it. Essentially, the guy's 50-odd-year-old man trying to get himself back into shape, having not fought for nearly 20 years. It was the same situation there. He ended up getting injured. He struggled to get someone to actually license the fight to take place, and that was also another stumbling block as well. I mean, I wouldn't see that being an issue with Tyson Holyfield. I'm sure the promoters in Vegas would love something on there. Of course they would, because it had put bums in seats, but it's happened over here. Nigel Benn got injured. He's not come back out. There's been no talk of him actually getting back in the ring. So whether this would be a similar instance, I think it's exciting for maybe the younger generation of boxing fans, the more new generation of boxing fans, because they will probably know Tyson from a lot of his highlight reel knockout videos, and obviously Holyfield for some of his videos as well. And looking back on the history of everything, you can see that they were once legendary heavyweights, but this is 2020, man. This is a completely different era of time, and I really wouldn't want to see it happen.
Ty, obviously you've been a boxer. How much of a toll, can these guys handle in a ring in their late 50s or in their 50s?
The thing is they're fighting. They're both in the same predicament, meaning they're both 50 plus, so they're kind of in the same. So it's not like Vander Holyfield trying to fight Deontay Wilder, Vander Holyfield trying to fight Tyson Fury. It's trying to fight Mike Tyson, and they're both in the same kind of predicament of being elderly men, close to retirement age. I'm talking about retirement, normal society, 9-to-5 retirement, 60 plus. So they'd kind of be in the same predicament. That's what would make it even because they're just both going to be shells of themselves. I'm just not very interested in it. We saw them fight both, and the thing is, we saw them both fight in their prime, and we know what happened. So, yeah.
But there was never that, like the Mike Tyson fight and Holyfield fight, where like that number two was never really, it was very short-winded. It was just 2 seconds. Tyson, ripped his ear off. Vander's ear off. Obviously, I know they're in their 50s. But do you think people want to see a complete fight? 10 rounds. Sean. Do you think that's something that the audience wants to see, or?
I think you will find a portion of audience that will want to see it, of course. But I think the majority of boxing fans would probably say no to it. I think if you were going to put a poll out on social media, I think you'd probably find that most people would say it's not really for me. I think the people that do want to see it are, with all due respect, the people that have probably not been around boxing too long of a period of time to really fully know the intricate workings of boxing. And I think they're the type of people that I would just go, oh yeah, I'd like to see that. That's Mike Tyson. That's Evander Holyfield. Yeah, I'd love to see them two get in the ring. We don't really want to see it again. And the thing is, these two guys have gone on to actually become quite good friends in the midst of it all. So the potential of them actually getting in the ring, if anything, is only going to be about them getting money in their pockets. Let's be honest. Evander Holyfield had his troubles outside of the ring, ended up going bankrupt and selling some of his prized memorabilia that he'd collected over the years, and I think one of his estates ended up having to be sold as well as a result of that. And Mike Tyson's problems are also well documented over the years, and it's nice to see him coming back to a level mentally where he seems to be kind of at peace with himself, with his hot boxing podcast. And he had Evander on that podcast. I think it wasn't too long ago, and it was nice to sort of hear them talk about them two fights. And the second fight, the infamous bite fight, of course, and the way they seem to have kind of gone past everything. So it seems quite strange that these two guys are being spoken about getting in the ring again. But also, there's another person in the mix of all this that I think we've not really touched on yet. It's Shannon Briggs. It's been announced today that Shannon Briggs has come out and made a statement saying that he's fighting Tyson, and they've agreed to it, and it's going to be Brownsville versus Brownsville, and that's apparently what's supposed to be happening. So again, there's a third wheel in this story here, and what would you think about potentially Shannon Briggs versus Mike Tyson is also another question.
Would that be more intriguing, Tyler?
Yeah, actually that would, because so just to touch on a point, you said they never finished it off. Mike Tyson and Vander fought 2 times, and the first fight was, he knocked Vander Holyfield, beat him fair and square. And then they fought the second fight, and honestly, Tyson was not going to win again. He was never going to beat Vander Holyfield. I will actually say that in their prime, Mike Tyson more than likely was never going to beat Vander Holyfield. And yes, I'm a huge Vander Holyfield fan, but still, I think the proof was in the pudding. He dominated both times they fought. But anyways, back to the question. Yes, that would be more entertaining because they didn't fight for one. Two, Shannon Briggs is crazy. He's a loudmouth. He would be very entertaining to watch the build-up to the fight. And yes, Brownsville versus Brownsville, that's interesting too. They never fought. That would be the more entertaining match than seeing two guys that already fought 2 times. That I don't think Evander is a really entertaining build-up guy anyway, so it wouldn't even be a ton of entertainment. He's not going to talk a lot of trash, probably will hardly talk at all. And he beat Evander Holyfield dominated Mike Tyson in 2 fights that they fought. Why do you think he bit his ear off? He was never going to beat Evander Holyfield.
But you think Mike had a psychological issue back then?
No, back then, his whole life, he never would have beaten. I'm going to say he never would have beaten Evander Holyfield. Evander Holyfield had one of the greatest, if not the greatest, hearts in the history of the sport. And he was one guy that he didn't care if he fought Godzilla. He was going to be there for the entire time. You're probably going to hit him. You're probably not going to hurt him. And you had to do it over and over and over and over again. And really the only people that could beat Evander when he was in his prime was guys like Lennox Lewis for Riddick Bowe, because they had every physical advantage. They were longer, they were taller, they were bigger. And even then, he beat Riddick Bowe. Every physical advantage over him. Mike Tyson wasn't going to beat Evander. He was always going to take Tyson shots and keep coming, and eventually he would wear him down physically and mentally.
Sean,
he was never going to beat Mike Tyson. He was never going to beat Evander Holyfield.
Sean, you agree?
Yeah, I think I do. Yeah, I think I do agree with that assessment from Tyler there, because I think it's quite evident that Holyfield, to his credit, although people wrote him off, I've recently been doing a lot of stuff for the podcast that I run regarding Holyfield and Bowe and their trilogy, and it's interesting to sort of see the progression of Evander Holyfield throughout his years, and the way he frustrated Mike Tyson in their 2 fights. It was quite evident to see, hence the bite fight name, and hence him ripping apart of Evander Holyfield's ear off. He was just too frustrated. He couldn't get close enough to hurt him, and every time he came in, he was getting hurt by shots on the inside. And obviously, Evander Holyfield is known for I wouldn't say dirty tactics, I'd say more rough house tactics in the ring, using his head a lot whilst he was on the inside, and it really frustrated Mike Tyson in them 2 fights. And that was the way Evander Holyfield fought his career. I mean, we're talking now 2020. If this was to happen, theoretically this year, we wouldn't see anywhere near the same thing that we'd seen 23, 24 years ago. There's not a chance that we'd get anywhere near that, and it'd probably be quite sad to see. But the Shannon Briggs prospect, would I want to see it? If I'm going to go out on a limb and say I'd watch one of them, it'd probably be Briggs versus Tyson. If it was any of them I would actually go out of my way to watch, it'd be that one, because there is a little bit more substance to that. Tyler laid out, Holyfield's beaten twice. What more is there to prove there by coming out and doing a third one? They're great. 2 names, fantastic. Briggs, who's been chasing a fight like this for, about 5-6 years, chasing Vladimir Klitschko around on a speedboat and chasing him around in a restaurant trying to get that big fight, and then coming to the UK and trying to call out David Hay over here. And he's been itching for a big fight for quite a while, to be honest with you. And maybe an exhibition between them two would be a bit more feasible than Tyson versus Holyfield. But another interesting topic that I came up today when looking more into this subject was the fact that Larry Holmes has come out and actually said, them two should get in the ring and fight. Tyson and Holyfield should get back in the ring and fight, and why not let them do it? Which I'm quite surprised at that. But then again, I think I'm not in some senses, because Larry Holmes was a guy who went on way too long in his career and came back multiple times. He came back to fight Tyson in the late 80s only because Don King decided to offer him $3 million and a suitcase full of cash to do so.
Wow. So you're saying Holmes wants to come back and box as well?
No, I'm saying Holmes is actually endorsing the
Oh,
Tyson
endorsing.
versus. Yeah, he's actually endorsing it. He's basically. I'll give you a quote of what he's actually said here. He said, "If these guys want to do it, I'd say go ahead and do it. I'm not going to say don't do it." And that's come out and said. So he's kind of endorsing that fight in a way. And I think when you get a heavyweight as legendary as Larry Holmes, who sits in the same regard as these two guys, saying that as well, it's. I think he's obviously just trying to get these guys get in the ring and do it in a capacity where potentially it's going to make these guys some money, because at the end of the day, when these two guys have been in the ring for all careers, they both walked away with not the rewards that they should have walked away with financially. They walked away with respect and with world titles and Hall of Fame careers. They never walked away with the money they should have done. And I think this is just, for me personally, it's just a ploy to kind of get people to want to buy into it, because it's going to make money. Inevitably, it will make money. And if KSI and Logan Paul, two YouTubers, can make a hell of a load of money, then why can't Mike Tyson and Evander Holyfield?
Glad you brought that up. I actually wanted to ask you about that. YouTubers fighting against each other. Do you prefer seeing that, or you rather see like the old guys fighting?
Oh wow, well that is it's a difficult one, that, because
First,
for me,
let me ask you, what do you think about YouTubers fighting against each other? That's my first question.
well, again, I think there's arguments for and against it. The arguments for it are the arguments that Tyler brought up earlier, which was it puts eyes on the sport. It probably puts bums on seats. The demographic of the people that are actually watching it are probably aged between 13 and 19. That's probably the demographic of the ages of people that are watching it, because they're mostly the fans of these two YouTubers in particular that have been successful in getting these fights on. But at the end of the day, they make money, don't they? And that is why the promoters want it. That's why Eddie Hearn in particular wanted it, because he knows he's going to be able to make money from promoting a fight between two guys that have got millions of subscribers on their own YouTube channel that are going to end up tuning in to want to watch these guys with this fabricated beef, so to speak. So, yeah, it's not for me personally. I speak to a lot of fighters in the UK that are going to work on a daily basis and going to the gym 2 or 3 times a day around the work, and have got young families and that have to work hard just to sell their tickets, make money to pay for their opponents whilst trying to make a name for themselves. And to me, these two guys that have come in with literally zero experience under the belts and are able to go in and make this much money because of the other platforms they've got, I feel really sorry for these guys that are trying to make something of themselves. And it's the same for fighters in America, of course, as well. There's obviously fighters on that small hall level in America that are obviously doing the same things here as the guys in the UK. They're fighting to make a name for themselves, literally blood, sweat and tears to make a name for themselves. And then they see these two guys just swoop in and take all these rewards when seemingly they've done literally nothing to deserve it. So that's kind of my opinion on that. And Tyler has obviously been in the ring yourself previously. Yeah. What would you say to that? What would your thoughts be on YouTubers fights?
I'm definitely in the ballpark of not a fan. I understand the entertainment aspect, but as you said, I know kids that grew up from extremely marginalized homes that have been fighting since they're 8 years old, that fought in national tournament after national tournament, getting donors and having to fundraise money so they could make tournaments, and then go into the pros and having to fight for very little money at smokers and at low-end cards, and having to build their way up for an opportunity, and to see that there's two goofballs that are nothing more than actors that get in the ring and kind of make a mockery of the sport because they're not really any good at all. From a sweet science aspect, I don't like it at all. Now, I do understand the entertainment, and entertainment sells, and it goes to, as Santiago knows, I'm actually an actor. I was actually an actor too, and that in itself has its own, like, I knew people that had gone to very serious acting training and had spent years and years in small-time roles, and then there'd be some person that just happened to be famous musician and they'd get lead roles in acting films. And so it goes in several different aspects of society, meaning sometimes entertainment is the biggest seller, but straight up, kids that work so hard and they don't get near the visibility, yet they know how to do the sport so well, and a couple of goofballs or just a couple entertainers are out there making money looking like straight garbage. Yeah.
It's pretty amateur, isn't it? Yeah, it's an amateur fighting. I saw both matches, but
and that is even my argument against Tyson and Holyfield, because that would just sell because of who their names are, their ability to sell views because of their Hall of Fame careers. But I would rather that time and effort went into young heavyweights that are in the prime of their careers. Guys like setting up fights between a guy like Ortiz and Fury, or Fury and Wilder 3, or something to that extent, instead of seeing two guys that have no business really fighting anymore, but because they were famous names. I mean, Mike Tyson hasn't been good for. He was in the decline when he fought Holyfield. So, yeah, I love when it comes to anything, any art, but in this case, the art of boxing that I spent a long time doing. I want to see two guys at the top of their career fighting each other. I want to see the chance of seeing greatness out there, the chance of seeing something beautiful and unique, and two guys that have worked at an extremely hard level and are at the prime of their careers, instead of seeing even just two has-beens, even if they were Hall of Famers. It's just not exciting to me.
Something to definitely look at. Cool fact, the oldest professional boxer ever recorded was Stephen Ward from England. He was 59 years old.
Oh, no.
Wow.
But he did not do well towards the end. Obviously, he lost a few fights, but retired 3 years ago. So a 59-year-old did it, but obviously he did it consecutively. He didn't, leave the game at 35 and come back in his 50s. No, he did it consecutively. Mike Tyson and Evander Holyfield are coming back for maybe over 15, 20 years. So it should be quite interesting coming back. And Shannon Briggs coming into the game. We'll see how that goes. But it sounds like it's more interesting with him versus Mike Tyson than Evander. So we'll see how it goes. Any closing words, Sean?
Yeah, I think just touching on what Tyler was saying there about young heavyweights, I think the only way I would possibly remotely even think about endorsing Tyson Holyfield or even Tyson Briggs would be if they was able to put young fighters into a position where they would benefit from being on the card. So you get young heavyweights out there, you get young cruiserweights out there, you get a load of young fighters from probably over in America, or maybe they'll import some from the UK or wherever. Get some of them fighters onto that card if you're going to do it, and give them the platform to be able to expose their skills and what they're all about to the world. Because for me, that'd be the only way you'd be able to remotely endorse it as a true fight fan. You want to see all these young fighters come out. You want to see all the next heavyweight stars, the next cruiserweight stars, whatever it may be. But if you get to see them as a result of this fight taking place, whether it just be a small 4-rounder exhibition or whatever it is they plan or end up doing, then I'd probably only remotely, and I say that with a pinch of salt, only remotely endorse it, just because of the sole fact that maybe some of these guys are getting a life-changing opportunity to be able to then put themselves on a platform which could potentially lead to further greater purses, further exposure, and potential title shots down the line. That's the only way I'd remotely endorse this particular fight going ahead.
One endorsement I would endorse, one fight, would be Tyler Turner versus Logan Paul.
I'd definitely pay to see Tyler do the business on him.
Ty will have to get back into the training, but I'm sure you could take this guy on.
Oh, yeah, probably. That's not very. That guy's not exactly. It's not a very high standard. Hey, can I ask him can I?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, go ahead.
I would like to know, Sean, who, just off the top of your head, who would you consider the 10 greatest heavyweights of all time?
Ooh, good question.
Oh, that's a really, really good question. I'm not really going to be able to do it in any particular order, but this is a very interesting question. So probably the 10 names now. I'm going to have to count it as I go along. So the first one that springs to mind from Jack Johnson from that particular era. Jack Johnson's definitely one of them. Jack Dempsey's got to be in there with a shout. Joe Louis has certainly got to be up there with a shout, of course. Then obviously you've got guys like Muhammad Ali in there that you've got to consider. Rocky Marciano, of course. Just trying to think of a few more off the top of my head that I've seen over the years that I've enjoyed watching, that I've enjoyed studying throughout the career. I've enjoyed Evander Holyfield's career. I've enjoyed Mike Tyson's career. Should they be in the top 10? Well, it's very subjective. Of course, I will say all these names and people will say they shouldn't even be anywhere near the top 10. But these are fighters who I believe have made their mark in the sport enough to be able to be classed as a top 10 fighter. Lennox Lewis, of course, another one out there. Who's a legendary fighter from over the years. So we've got so many of these great fighters.
How about George Foreman?
George Foreman, yeah, is another one. Great fighter. Joe Frazier, even people might say Joe Frazier's another one that you could stick into the top 10. But that particular era of Muhammad Ali, Joe Frazier, and George Foreman, there were so many heavyweights that, in a different era, probably could have been in that top 10. Guys like Ernie Shavers and Jerry Quarry, these are absolute fantastic fighters that were around at the time that were just in the wrong era of time with the guys like Muhammad Ali. So I don't think I've given you 10, but I've certainly given you at least 6. Yeah, 8. There you go.
I think it was 8.
I know of.
How about Tyler?
Certainly 8.
Who are your top 10?
Oh, my top 10, I'm going off the top of my head. The greatest heavyweight, in my opinion, was Joe Louis. I think he was the most skillful. I think he could do everything. He could box. He could bang. He threw a beautiful left hook. He fought everyone in his time. I believe Joe Louis was the greatest heavyweight to ever live. I will go Muhammad Ali, number 2. I think he was the most talented heavyweight. No one had his speed. No one had his ability to move, especially before he went to prison. Number 3, I would probably actually say Larry Holmes. I think he was a very, very skilled heavyweight. He had a terrific jab. He was difficult for anyone to fight. Now, I know he beat Ali when he was older. I do believe that would have been a very difficult fight for Ali in his prime because he was very long. He had a very hard jab. He threw very good straight punches. He was a guy that it was very hard to generate any kind of offense, and it was very difficult for any heavyweight to beat him in a points contest. Number 4, I'd probably say Jack Johnson. He fought in an older era, but he was just very skilled, and he was just so much better. He was the greatest defensive fighter probably ever in the heavyweight division. Would he have been as good in the newer era? I don't know, but you just have to go with the era he fought on and what the abilities he had. He was a terrific defensive fighter. Number 5, I'm going to go number 5 and number 6. I'm going to go based on the 2 guys who I think had the greatest hearts in the heavyweight division. And even though there was guys who were more skilled, even though there was guys that had more physical talent, I do not think any heavyweight and possibly any fighters in the history of boxing had more heart than Rocky Marciano and Evander Holyfield. Every time those guys came, they came out there for every minute, every second, and every bit of every round. And if you were not there for the entire fight, if you took 1 second off, you were going to lose to Rocky Marciano and Evander Holyfield. Rocky Marciano never lost. Evander only lost 2 guys, and that's the only reason why I had him I struggled maybe even to have him above Lewis. He struggled with those tall, just naturally bigger guys. He fought Lewis when he was older, though. I wonder how that would have gone when he was younger. Because he beat Bo, and he should never have beaten Bo, because Bo had every physical advantage. I would say number 7, Lennox Lewis. I think Lennox Lewis was kind of like Holmes. I just don't think he was quite as good. But Lennox Lewis was just a very big man, and he was very long. He had some of the longest arms in the history of heavyweight division, and just was hard to generate any kind of real offense because Holmes and Lewis reminded me they had such good jabs, and they were long, and they were just a difficult person to beat because they had so many physical advantages. And believe me, as someone who fought in that division, when you fight some guy that's just big and long and they have straight punches, it's just it's very, very, very tough. And then I'd probably finish it off with, probably Frazier. Once again, Hart. I'd actually put him close to Holyfield and Marciano. Maybe I'll go Lewis 5, and then I'll go Marciano, Frazier, and
it gets tough here. It gets tough.
Holyfield, and then I'd probably finish off with George Foreman. I think he was the hardest puncher ever in boxing. He just had a long period where he didn't fight, and when he was young, he had obviously that fight against Ali, had no business losing, and then he lost again to was it Ron Lyle? I know it wasn't Ron Lyle, but I forgot he lost to some other guy that he had no business losing to. And because of that, I have him lower, but actually just straight punching power, he was going to be hard for anyone to beat. And then I'd probably put Dempsey. I think I have one more guy, and I'd probably put Dempsey number 10.
Sean, you agree with this list?
I think it's a very, very good list. I think a couple of outsiders that you could probably, some people may or may not consider, is guys like Vladimir Klitschko, who was champion for a decade in the sport. People completely overlook Klitschko's reign as the boring era, which I totally understand because of his tactics. His jab and grab and hold tactics weren't the most appealing to boxing fans that wanted to see a tear-up, of course, but he certainly probably earned his right to push himself up to that level because of what he achieved in the sport. It depends on what the list is based on. Is it based on accolades alone? Is it based on skill, will, and heart? It really depends on how you base it on. But I think he's definitely in with a shout of putting him up there. And obviously Larry Holmes, as you mentioned, was one that I couldn't think of at the time. Great fighter. Again, it's just a shame that he was in the era he was in because he fought everybody that was put in front of him. And I think if he would have been born maybe 5 or 6 years earlier, he may have just crept into that era of obviously the Alis, the Frasers, the Ken. I know he fought Norton, but he could have got him a bit earlier and in the career, and could have had some interesting fights. So guys like that, they certainly deserve to be in the top 10. But then you can make an argument for many other fighters. You've got obviously Gene Tunney, Riddick Bowe, even Floyd Patterson and Jersey Joe Walcott. You've got all these other fighters there that people may or may not put in the top 10. So yeah, it's very difficult, very subjective. But I think me and Ty are kind of on a similar page with a lot of the fighters that we put into that top 10. It's hard not to look past them, to be honest.
Yeah, one or two could be interchangeable.
Who would you put first, Lewis or Ali?
Oof. He stumped you.
I think Ali. I think Ali for me would be my number one personally over Joe Louis. I think the only reason I'd pick him over Joe Louis is I just feel like Joe Louis's career, it was difficult for Joe Louis because obviously he fought during an era where some of the competition at periods of his career wasn't the greatest in hindsight looking back on it, whereas Ali, even his 3 years out in exile, he did go on to fight some of the best in the business. He obviously had Floyd Patterson, you had Sonny Liston, George Foreman, Joe Frazier, Ken Norton, Ron Lyle, Joe Bugner. You had all these names that Ali had on his resume that you can say generally that resume is fantastic. And I think for Joe Louis, you look at some of the notable wins on his record, and obviously you don't. It's hard because different eras, different fighters. But for me, Ali is my number one heavyweight of all time.
Wow, and there you have it. We'd like to see that list hopefully posted on the Sportscast a little bit later on this week. Anything else before we head into predictions?
We have predictions?
We have one game, but I don't know if you can predict it. I know Sean has a better chance.
Is it a soccer? Okay,
It's soccer. The only thing available. Yeah. Okay. Werder Bremen versus Bayern Leverkusen. Who you got, Sean?
Um, well, again, difficult one.
It's a German.
It's a German based, both German based football teams. I don't follow. I'll be honest, I don't really follow too much of the German based football. So for me, from what I know about the two squads, I think at the moment Werder Bremen have got the slightly better squad than Bayern Leverkusen. Bayern Leverkusen actually used to be quite a decent force of years gone by. They had some quite amazing players, and what ends up happening in the German league is you get Bayern Munich and Borussia Dortmund end up poaching all the good players from the sort of the mid-tier clubs like Werder Bremen and Bayern Leverkusen. I remember Bayern Leverkusen's team of the Champions League, probably in the early to mid 2000s. He had some absolutely fantastic players, but in this day and age, it seems to be a bit of a two-horse race with Bayern Munich and Borussia Dortmund.
Tyler?
Well, Bayern Munich's the only one it knows. I'll go with them.
There you go. Sean, so even though like the Premier League training will start this week, do you think they'll start in June? Probably.
Well, what's happened in the Scottish Premier League today is that Celtic have been crowned champions. They've basically decided to end the league on the standings, the league table as it was, as the last time they played a game, and Celtic have actually gone on to win the Scottish Premier League. So it'll be interesting to see how they do the English Premier League, because at the moment, as it stands, Liverpool are at the top of the English Premier League. Now, Liverpool have not won a title, a major title like that, a league title for I think it's something like ridiculous, like 25 to even 30 years.
30 years.
I mean, Liverpool.
Yeah,
Liverpool fans will be screaming at me now, saying, how dare you? But no, seriously, they haven't won the title for a very long time, a league title. And I know, as for Liverpool fans, this is a major, major thing for them. If they go on to actually be crowned champions, it's an amazing achievement for them. Obviously, having won the Champions League last season as well, it's that step that they've never been able to take for a long time. So I'd like to see it come back. There's a lot of talks in the UK of it coming back, with obviously them going into training. As to whether they're going to be able to fit this in over the course of a summer is another question, because logistically, how are they going to be able to then set the new season up? Are they going to have to put that back till September, October before they start the new season? There's a lot of logistics around it, which I think is going to be quite difficult to overcome. Fair play to them if they do get it up and running, but as it stands, if they decided to just go with as it is, Liverpool will be crowned champions.
Yeah, and players' contracts expire on June 30th, so they do have a time crunch per se. Last night, Reggie Miller said that his Indianapolis Pacers team were a better team than versus the Chicago Bulls team back in the '98 playoffs. Tyler, do you agree? Yes or no?
Did they beat them?
No, they did not. But they thought they were a better team. So that's a no.
Good. I'm glad he thought that. Did India? That was Indianapolis teams. Didn't even make a NBA final. Oh no, they did.
They did in 2000 against the Lakers. Yeah.
Yeah, Lakers. That's right. I mean, I remember. Yeah, those Indiana teams were very good. Reggie Miller is one of the greatest shooters of all time. Rick Smith was a great player. But yeah, they didn't. Antonio Davis was great inside. Dale Davis. I remember those Indiana teams very well, and I think in a different era, those teams would have probably won a NBA title. But you know, it was the era of the Bulls, it was the era of the Knicks, it was the era of the Lakers, and they kind of were the bride pretty much every single time. So. It's kind of unfortunate because I actually always rooted for the Pacers.
Oh, wow.
When they played the Knicks, rooted for them. When they played the Bulls, I rooted for them. Yeah. And I don't even, Reggie's kind of, I don't know. Reggie's Reggie. But I just liked that they were kind of always the underdog, and I wanted them to get over the top.
Sean,
and they didn't quite get it. But Reggie Miller, as a pure shooter, just as a pure ability to shoot the ball, I would say he's top 3. I would say he's one of the 3 best pure shooters in NBA history.
Would he be better than Steph Curry?
See, that's the other guy. Curry Curry can do more. Curry can drive. Curry is a good facilitator. Curry's the better basketball player. Now, if they just went out there and shot 3-pointers, that's tough. I mean, between Allen, Ray Allen, Reggie Miller, and Curry, who would I take?
To take that final shot.
Curry fan. Maybe Miller, honestly.
I would too. Sean?
Well, final shot argument for Allen. But yeah, I'll say Miller.
Sean?
I'll be honest with you, I've got absolutely little to no knowledge of a lot of the sports that happen over in the USA. I mean, I've followed a lot of the stuff. I think I'm probably what's known to the audience as a bit of a casual fan when it comes to the American sports, the type of fan that will kind of dip in and out of some of the stuff, and I'll be the one that kind of goes in and sees the marquee names and thinks, oh, that might interest me. I might go in and have a look at this or take a bit of an interest in it. But I'll be honest, I don't get the opportunity to be able to fully immerse myself in some of the other sports that are there over in the USA, due to the sole fact that I'm always doing podcasts constantly for the BTR Boxing Podcast Network. So my time is quite consumed a lot with boxing most of the time.
I don't blame you. Boxing is an international sport, one of the few sports we share with the UK, so it's always a good thing that we have something in common in sports. Random question: what is your favorite museum? Science, art, history, or archaeology?
History, all the way. History. I've got a bit of a fascination with the Second World War. That's always been something that I've really enjoyed looking into, and it was VE Day quite recently.
Yeah.
I think it was about a week or so ago. It was VE Day, and here in the UK, it was quite interesting that everybody decided to put out the Union Jack flags, the Great Britain flags, and pay respects to all those that lost their life in the Second World War. And I had a family member, great granddad was in the Second World War, and I was actually given a couple of his medals on my wedding day from the Second World War. So I'm quite a big history lover. So a history museum for me, Santiago, would be the first place I'd like to go.
Oh, awesome. Ty, what is your favorite museum? Science, art, history, or archaeology?
Yeah, hands down, history. And Sean will like to hear this. In my opinion, the most impactful leader of a country over the last 100 years was Winston Churchill, a very Machiavellian-like hero, kind of like we have today in America. But I think that Churchill was one of the most impactful and made one of it was key for him to take over leadership in England, because Nazi Germany obviously had completely out of control. So, yeah, I love history, and I think Churchill is the best leader of the last 100+ years.
One of my favorite quotes from Churchill: "If you go through hell, go through it fast." Sean, what is the best way to reach you online?
The best way to reach me is my social media handle on Twitter, which is at Sean, spell SEAN, and BTR Boxing. And you can find me on Facebook. You can just find me my name, Sean Barstow. And I think we're also on Instagram as well. You can find the ESBR Boxing platform on there. And there's about 5 different podcasts that I host at the moment. I don't want to bore everybody too much, but if you go onto my main Twitter profile, at Sean BTR Boxing, you'll be able to find all the latest podcasts relating to different sides of the sport, including one that we've just recently launched called The Darker Side of Boxing, which is basically true crime. So things like the passing of Sonny Liston, Oscar Bonavena, Arturo Gatti, Edwin Valero, all these names that ended up having a bit of a grisly demise. We've been covering them, and we've been covering some great factual-based information. So if any true crime fans and boxing fans are out there you go, something to listen to.
Ty, what's the best way to reach you online to talk to you about boxing and Buckster Lewis? No, go ahead. Sorry, I messed up the names. Who's the guy that knocked out Tyson? Buckster Douglas. That's his name.
Buster Douglas.
One of my favorites.
Douglas. Oh, yeah. At TurnerCast, yeah. Call me. Boxing, football. Probably going to do a football one coming up, right?
Yeah, we're doing a football podcast. Ty just just wrote a rankings.
Bryce,
Go ahead.
I think the one that we're talking about doing is Alabama centric. We got a lot of Alabama fans. Bryce Young or Mac Jones? Who will be? I'm doing the case for Bryce Young. I believe Justin Riley will be doing the case for Mac Jones.
But that'll be coming next week, of course. You can follow us at thesportscast.net, thesportscast.net, or on Twitter at thesportscast1. Sean, I know during like this whole pandemic, but is there any upcoming boxing matches soon?
The only one that I've kind of stumbled across at the moment is, I don't know if Tyler, if you know it, I'm sure you'll know the names. Kevin Kingpin Johnson versus Mariusz Wach in Poland is proposed for June. I think it's the 12th or the 15th of June it's been proposed for. And they're actually putting it on pay-per-view for a very small marginal fee of around, I think it's about $3 or $4 US money-wise.
That's real cheap.
And it's quite interesting that that's taken place. One of the lads that I work with over at ESBR Boxing actually has just interviewed Kevin Johnson. He's well known to the UK fight fans now because he's basically become a journeyman of boxing, and he's fought guys like Anthony Joshua and some of the prospects coming out of the UK, Daniel Dubois, Nathan Gorman, these heavyweight fighters. So that's actually the next one that I'm aware of that people are they're looking forward to it in a way, but they're kind of not, because these two guys that are like basically world level gatekeepers fighting each other in Poland, in Mariusz Wach's hometown and home country
with no fans.
Probably
right?
going to make. Well, we don't know about that. We don't know what adoptions Poland have got in place at the moment.
Sure, yeah,
so
Poland's a little bit different. I've heard. Yeah, they're a different animal in Europe. So at least 25% full.
It'll be interesting, Santiago, to see how that actually plays out. But for anyone else that's looking for a bit of boxing, I know there's a lot of talk of small hall shows going on behind closed doors here in the UK, and I know with WWE doing a lot of stuff in Florida, I know that Bob Arum was toying with the idea of trying to get some behind closed doors boxing, which a few people have been quite vocal about. I think world champion Jamal Herring's quite vocal about the fact that he'd happily go and fight behind closed doors, but emphasis on the fact that it probably would not be the same because there's going to be no atmosphere there. It'd be like a glorified sparring session for most of them.
I mean, my idea, when it comes to crowds and fans, have people sit every other seat, or have household, sit together, and then like a couple seats empty, and then another person or household, and then every other row, will be full. That's what I say. And how
about pumping in some fan noise? So because you have less fans, maybe just doing some art.
Absolutely.
I know they talked about it a little bit. NFL, maybe the stadiums aren't as packed, but if you're like the home team, you get like some artificial noise when. I don't know. There's some cool ideas you could do.
Absolutely. And
we have technology at work.
Yeah, and then you could order your food from an app and go pick it up rather than just waiting in line with 5 other people there and they could catch the virus, whatever. But hey, there's ways to get around it. We'll be more creative. We'll get more technology. Get people like me, like a web developer, just to develop all these tools. This is a shameless plug. Anyways, guys, we're out of time. We got to pay some bills, and it's almost evening in England, so we got to go. Guys, thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me. Thank you very much. Take care.